Oh, come on. There we go. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the delay. I, my insides were not very happy with me. Yo. Hi, more. Um, also, let me. Actually, no. For reading streams, I won't have my tits as, yeah, nothing super disruptive. Um, Hi, Night Talon. Thanks for lurking. So I made my usual no tits out. Darn. I mean, yeah. um, excuse me. Um, but yeah, no, I made my default meal, which is pasta, peas, and sauce, and if I have the money to spare, ground beef. And today, I I went to the store several days ago, and I picked up Bertolli 5 cheese sauce, and I was like, maybe I'll give this a try. So I used it. Like I opened up the container, and then I'm like, oh, this smells kind of weird. Not bad, but weird. And I'm like, you know what? I'll run with it. And I also did a jar of my favorite Bertolli's olive oil and garlic. That's like my favorite like tomato sauce that I've ever had. So I put that in there too to like add in some of the stuff that I know and hopefully make it not taste bad. Um, and I season my meat and everything. Um, but yeah, I don't know what it was. I'm thinking like the expiration date on the 5 cheese was fine. It was just I don't know. My insides were not very happy with it. And I don't think I'm going to get 5 cheese again. So yeah, that's why there was a bit of a delay. Because I haven't been eating anything else different. So my bet's on that 5 cheese sauce. But yes, hello. And welcome everybody to Wednesday. F in chat for Illis's insides. F. Yeah. I mean, they're fine now. Or at least they seem that way. If anything comes up, you'll know. But yeah, so today, as the title says, Wednesday is going to be readings. As just trying out this whole reading thing and see how it goes. And like the title says, we'll be reading the Odyssey, books 4 through 6, and maybe 7. Insides being how my insides are doing will be the determining factor. Yeah. Feel free to relax and just vibe to me talking for the next 2 hours. Well, reading. But yeah. Well, hour and a half, 2 hours. We'll see. So let me. And also, one other thing. I have the command !Discord since I'm going public with my Discord server. If you want to come and hang out, I'm definitely on there more than Twitter. As well as if you'd like to read along, I have !Reading if you want to see the actual document I'm reading from. Although it's a public domain book, so you could find it anywhere. You'll be playing Final Fantasy 14 and listening, but I'll keep an eye on chat. Oh, Gucci's more. Keep grinding them levels. And yeah, if you, like I said before, if you ever need anything, well, anything that a weaver can make, I got you. And then, Casey has level 80 and everything. So they could help you. Well, they could help you with anything, really. But yeah. Oh, and the Discord command is only going to be to this stream, pretty much. It's in my about on Twitch, so if you don't get to it now with the command, you can just go down there and click it. But without further ado, Casey loaded you up earlier today. Right on, right on. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, there's the Discord link if you would like to join in. But anyway, without any further ado, time to start Book 4 of the Odyssey. First off, I need to. You know what? Let me get some PJs on. I need to be comfy and relaxed. So, give me just a moment. Okay. PJs have been acquired. Maximum comf. Yes. Okay. All right. Book 4 of the Odyssey. Disable notice. Oh, yeah, you're right. Well, I mean, even if they do it, it's. Well, true. They won't see it because Tits isn't active, but yeah, it's good to get rid of it. So people don't spend their points. No Daddy Kazoo. No Are You Sure? And no Notice Me. And no Valley Girl. RR is fine. Oh yeah, no, and the sound alerts are more or less muted because this is going to be comfy, just reading. Wednesday reading stream. So, yeah. And yeah, thank you, more. All right. Book 4 of the Odyssey. Hmm. Now, when the sun had set and darkness was over the land, they reached the low-lying city of Lacedaemon, where they drove straight to the abode of Menelaus, and found him in his own house, feasting with many clansmen in honor of the wedding of his son, and also of his daughter, whom he was marrying to the son of that valiant warrior Achilles. He had given his consent and promised her to him while he was still at Troy, and now the gods were bringing the marriage about. So he was sending her with chariots and horses to the city of Myrmidons over whom Achilles' son was reigning. For his only son, he had found a bride from Sparta, the daughter of Alector. The son, Megapenthus, was born to him of a bondswoman, for heaven vouchsafed Helen no more children after she had borne Hermione, who was fair as golden Venus herself. So the neighbors and kinsmen of Menelaus were feasting and making merry in his house. There was a bard also to sing to them and play his lyre, while 2 tumblers went about performing in the midst of them, when the man struck up with his tune. Telemachus and the son of Nestor stayed their horses at the gate, whereon Eteneus, servant to Menelaus, came out, and as soon as he saw them ran hurrying back into the house to tell his master. He went close up to them and said, Menelaus, there are some strangers come here, 2 men, who look like sons of Jove. What are we to do? Shall we take their horses out, or tell them to find friends elsewhere as they best can? Menelaus was very angry and said, Eteneus, son of Boethous, you never used to be a fool, but now you talk like a simpleton. Take their horses out, of course, and show the strangers in that they may have supper. You and I have stayed often enough at other people's houses before we got back here, where heaven grant that we may rest in peace henceforward. So Eteneus bustled back and bade the other servants come with him. They took their sweating steeds from under the yoke, made them fast to the mangers, and gave them a feed of oats and barley mixed. Then they leaned the chariot against the end wall of the courtyard, and led the way into the house. Telemachus and Pisistratus were astonished when they saw it, for its splendor was as that of the sun and moon. Then, when they had admired everything to their heart's content, they went into the bathroom and washed themselves. When the servants had washed them and anointed them with oil, they brought them woolen cloaks and shirts, and the 2 took their seats by the side of Menelaus. A maidservant brought them water in a beautiful golden ewer, and poured it into a silver basin for them to wash their hands, and she drew a clean table beside them. An upper servant brought them bread, and offered them many good things of what there was in the house, while the carver fetched them plates of all manner of meats and set cups of gold by their side. I want to take a drink here. Just a moment. Menelaus then greeted them, saying, Fall to and welcome. When you have done supper, I shall ask who you are, for the lineage of such men as you cannot have been lost. You must be descended from a line of scepter-bearing kings, for poor people do not have such sons as you are. On this he handed them a piece of fat roast loin, which had been set near him as being a prime part, and they laid their hands on the good things that there were before them, As soon as they had enough to eat and drink, Telemachus said to the son of Nestor, with his head so close that no one might hear, "Look, Pisistratus, man after my own heart, see the gleam of bronze and gold, of amber, ivory, and silver. Everything is so splendid that it is like seeing the palace of Olympian Jove. I am lost in admiration." Menelaus overheard him and said, "No one, my sons, can hold his own with Jove, for his house and everything about him is immortal. But among mortal men, well, there may be another who has as much wealth as I have, or there may not. But at all events I have traveled much and have undergone much hardship, for it was nearly 8 years before I could get home with my fleet. I went to Cyprus, Phoenicia, and the Egyptians. I went also to the Ethiopians, the Sidonians, and the Arembians, and to Libya, where the lambs have horns as soon as they are born." Sorry, my tummy's a little gassy. So I keep muting. Of horns as soon as they're born. And the sheep lamb down 3 times a year. Everyone in that country, whether master or man, has plenty of cheese, meat, and good milk, for the ewes yield all the year round. But while I was traveling and getting great riches among these people, my brother was secretly and shockingly murdered through the perfidy of his wicked wife, so that I have no pleasure in being lord of all this wealth. Whoever your parents may be, they must have told you about all this, and of my heavy loss in the ruin of a stately mansion fully and magnificently furnished. Would that I had only a third of what I now have, so that I had stayed at home, and all those were living who perished on the plain of Troy, far from Argos. I often grieve as I sit here in my house, for one and all of them. At times I cry aloud for sorrow, but presently I leave off again, for crying is cold comfort, and one soon tires of it. Yet grieve for these as I may, I do so for one man more than for them all. I cannot even think of him without loathing both food and sleep. So miserable does he make me, for no one of all the Achaeans, worked so hard or risked so much as he did. He took nothing by it, and has left a legacy of sorrow to myself, for he has been gone a long time, and we know not whether he is alive or dead. His old father, his long-suffering wife Penelope, and his son Telemachus, whom he left behind in an infant in arms, are plunged in grief on his account. Thus spoke Menelaus, and the heart of Telemachus yearned as he bethought of him of his father. Tears fell from his eyes as he heard him thus mentioned, so that he held his cloak before his face with both hands. "Hello, Masonic." I heard that. Even at 1%, I heard that. It's Wednesday reading time. Yeah, you did, Mart. Hi. Let's see. When Menelaus saw this, he doubted whether to let him choose his own time for speaking, or to ask him at once and find what it was all about. While he was thus in 2 minds, Helen came down from her high-vaulted and perfumed room, looking as lovely as Diana herself. Adraste brought her a seat, Alcippe a soft woolen rug, while Philo fetched her the silver workbox which Alcandra, wife of Polybus, had given her. Polybus lived in Egyptian Thebes, which is the richest city in the whole world. He gave Menelaus 2 baths, both of pure silver, 2 tripods, and 10 talents of gold. Besides all this, his wife gave Helen some beautiful presents, to wit, a golden distaff, and a silver workbox that ran on wheels, with a gold band around the top of it. Philo now placed this by her side, full of fine spun yarn, and a distaff charged with violet-colored wool was laid upon the top of it. Then Helen took her seat, put her feet upon the footstool, and began to question her husband. "Do we know Menelaus?" said she. "The names of these strangers who have come to visit us. Shall I guess right or wrong? But I cannot help saying what I think. Never yet have I seen either man or woman so like somebody else. Indeed, when I look at him, I hardly know what to think, as this young man is like Telemachus, whom Ulysses left as a baby behind him, when you Achaeans went to Troy with battle in your hearts, on account of my most shameless self." "My dear wife," replied Menelaus, "I see the likeness just as you do. His hands and feet are just like Ulysses. So is his hair, with the shape of his head and the expression of his eyes. Moreover, when I was talking about Ulysses, and saying how much he had suffered on my account, tears fell from his eyes, and he hid his face in his mantle." Then Pisistratus said, "Menelaus, son of Atreus, you are right in thinking that this young man is Telemachus, but he is very modest, and is ashamed to come here and begin opening up discourse with one whose conversation is so divinely interesting as your own. My father, Nestor, sent me to escort him hither, for he wanted to know whether you could give him any counsel or suggestion. A son has always trouble at home when his father is gone away, leaving him without supporters. And this is how Telemachus is now placed, for his father is absent, and there is no one among his own blessed people to stand by him." "Bless my heart," replied Menelaus. "Then I am receiving a visit from the son of a very dear friend, whom suffered hardship for my sake. I had always hoped to entertain him with most marked distinction when heaven had granted us a safe return from beyond the seas. I should have founded a city for him in Argos, and built him a house. I should have made him leave Ithaca with his goods, his son, and all his people, and should have sacked for them some one of the neighboring cities that are subject to me. We should thus have seen one another continually, and nothing but death could have interrupted so close and happy an intercourse. I suppose, however, that heaven grudged us such great good fortune, for it has prevented the poor fellow from ever getting home at all." Thus did he speak, and his words set them all a-weeping. Helen wept, Telemachus wept, and so did Menelaus, nor could Pisistratus keep his eyes from filling, when he remembered his dear brother Antilochus, whom the son of bright dawn had killed. Thereon he said to Menelaus, "Sir, my father Nestor, when we used to talk about you at home, told me you were a person of rare and excellent understanding. If, then, it can be possible, do as I would urge you. I am not fond of crying while I am getting my supper. Morning will come in due course, and in the forenoon I care not how much I cry for those that are dead and gone. This is all we can do for the poor things. We can only shave our heads for them and wring the tears from our cheeks. I had a brother who died at Troy. He was by no means the worst man there. You are sure to have known him. His name was Antilochus. I never set eyes upon him myself, but they say that he was singularly fleet of foot, and in fight valiant." "Your discretion, my friend," said Menelaus, "is beyond your years. It is plain you take after your father. One can soon see when a man is son to one whom heaven has blessed both as regards wife and offspring, and it has blessed Nestor from first to last all his days, giving him a green old age in his own house, with sons about him who are both well-disposed and valiant. We will put an end, therefore, to all this weeping, and attend to our supper again. Let water be poured over our hands. Telemachus and I can talk with one another fully in the morning." On this Asphalion, one of the servants, poured water over their hands, and they laid their hands on the good things that were before them. Then Jove's daughter, Helen, bethought her of another matter. She drugged the wine with a nerve that banishes all care, sorrow, and ill humor. Whoever drinks wine thus drugged cannot shed a single tear all the rest of the day, not even though his father and mother, both of them, drop down dead, or he sees a brother or a son hewn in pieces before his very eyes. This drug, of such sovereign power and virtue, had been given to Helen by Polydamna, wife of Thon, a woman of Egypt, where there grew all sorts of herbs, some good to put into the mixing bowl and others poisonous. Moreover, everyone in the whole country is a skilled physician, for they are of the race of Paeon. When Helen had put this drug in the bowl, and had told the servants to serve the wine round, she said, "Menelaus, son of Atreus, and you, my good friends, sons of honorable men, which is as Jove wills, for he is a giver both of good and evil, and can do what he chooses. Feast here as you will, and listen while I tell you a tale in season. I cannot indeed name every single one of the exploits of Ulysses, but I can say that what he did when he was before Troy, and you Achaeans were in all sorts of difficulties. He covered himself with wounds and bruises, dressed himself all in rags, and entered the enemy's city looking like a menial or a beggar, and quite different from what he did when he was among his own people. In this disguise he entered the city of Troy, and no one said anything to him. I alone recognized him and began to question him, but he was too cunning for me. When, however, I had washed and anointed him, and had given him clothes, and after I had sworn a solemn oath not to betray him to the Trojans, till he had got safely back to his own camp and to the ships, he told me all that the Achaeans meant to do. He killed many Trojans and got much information before he reached the Argive camp, for all which things the Trojan women made lamentation, but for my own part I was glad. For my heart was beginning to yearn after my home, and I was unhappy about the wrong that Venus had done me in undertaking me over there, away from my country, my girl, and my lawful wedded husband, who is indeed by no means deficient either in person or understanding. Then Menelaus said, "All that you have been saying, my dear wife, is true. I have traveled much, and have had much to do with heroes, but I have never seen such another man as Ulysses. What endurance, too, and what courage he displayed within the wooden horse, wherein all the bravest of the Argives were lying in wait to bring death and destruction upon the Trojans. At that moment you came up to us, some god who wished well to the Trojans, must have set you on to it, and you had Deiphobus with you. 3 times did you go all around our hiding place and pat it. You called our chiefs each by his own name, and mimicked all our wives. Diomed, Ulysses, and I from our seats inside heard what a noise you made. Diomed and I could not make up our minds whether to spring out then and there, or to answer you from inside. But Ulysses held us all in check, so we sat quite still, except Anticlus, who was beginning to answer you, when Ulysses clapped his 2 brawny hands over his mouth and kept them there. It was this that saved us all, for he muzzled Anticlus till Minerva took you away again." "How sad," exclaimed Telemachus, "that all this was of no avail to save him, nor yet his own iron courage. But now, sir, be pleased to send us all to bed, that we may lie down and enjoy the blessed boon of sleep." On this Helen told the maidservants to set beds in the room that was in the gatehouse, and to make them with good red rugs, and spread coverlets on top of them with woolen cloaks for the guests to wear. So the maids went out, carrying a torch, and made the beds, to which a manservant presently conducted the strangers. Thus, then, did Telemachus and Pisistratus sleep there in the forecourt, while the son of Atreus lay in an inner room with lovely Helen by his side. When the child of morning, rosy-fingered dawn, appeared, Menelaus rose and dressed himself. He bound his sandals on to his comely feet, girded his sword about his shoulders, and left his room looking like an immortal god. Then, taking a seat near Telemachus, he said, "And what, Telemachus, has led you to take this long sea voyage to Lacedaemon? Are you on public or private business? Tell me all about it." "I have come, sir," replied Telemachus, "to see if you can tell me anything about my father. I am being eaten out of house and home. My fair estate is being wasted, and my house is full of miscreants who keep killing great numbers of my sheep and oxen, on the pretence of paying their address to my mother. Therefore, I am suppliant at your knees if haply you may tell me about my father's melancholy end, whether you saw it with your own eyes or heard it from some other traveler, for he was a man born to trouble. Do not soften things out of any pity for myself, but tell me in all plainness exactly what you saw. If my brave father Ulysses ever did you loyal service either by word or deed, when you Achaeans were harassed by the Trojans, bear it in mind now as in my favor, and tell me truly all." Menelaus, on hearing this, was very much shocked. "So," he exclaimed, "these cowards would usurp a brave man's bed? A hind might as well lay her newborn young in the lair of the lion, and then go off to feed in the forest or in some grassy dwell. The lion, when he comes back to his lair, will make short work of the pair of them, and so will Ulysses with these suitors. By Father Jove, Minerva, and Apollo, if Ulysses is still the man that he was when he wrestled with Philomelades in Lesbos, and threw him so heavily that all the Achaeans cheered him, if he is still such and were to come near these suitors, they would have a short shrift and a sorry wedding. As regards to your questions, however, I will not prevaricate nor deceive you, but will tell you without concealment all that the old man of the sea told me." Ugh. I might need to find a different source, because this white is being like, ugh. "I was trying to come on here, but the gods detained me in Egypt, for my hecatombs had not given them full satisfaction, and the gods are very strict about having their dues. Now off Egypt, about as far as a ship can sail in a day with a good stiff breeze behind her, there is an island called Pharos. It has a good harbor from which vessels can get out into open sea when they have taken in water. And here the gods becalmed me 20 days without so much as a breath of fair wind to help me forward. We should have run clean out of provisions, and my men would have starved, if a goddess had not taken pity upon me and saved me in the person of Idathea, daughter of Proteus, the old man of the sea, for she had taken a great fancy to me. She came to me one day when I was by myself, as I often was, for the men used to go with their barbed hooks all over the island in hope of catching a fish or two to save them from the pangs of hunger. 'Stranger,' said she, 'it seems to me that you like starving in this way. At any rate, it does not greatly trouble you, for you stick here day after day without even trying to get away though your men are dying by inches.' 'Let me tell you,' said I, 'whichever of the goddesses you may happen to be, that I am not staying here of my own accord, but must have offended the gods that live in heaven. Tell me, therefore, for the gods know everything, which of the immortals it is that is hindering me in this way, and tell me also how I may sail the sea so as to reach my home.' 'Stranger,' replied she, 'I will make it all quite clear to you. There is an old immortal who lives under the sea hereabouts, and whose name is Proteus. He is an Egyptian, and people say he is my father. He is Neptune's head man and knows every inch of ground all over the bottom of the sea. If you can snare him and hold him tight, he will tell you about your voyage, what courses you are to take, and how you are to sail the sea, so as to reach your home. He will also tell you, if you so will, all that has been going on at your house, both good and bad, while you have been away on your long and dangerous journey." "Can you show me," said I, "some stratagem by means of which I may catch this old god without his suspecting it and finding me out? For a god is not easily caught, not by a mortal man." "Stranger," said she, "I will make it all quite clear to you. About the time when the sun shall have reached mid-heaven, the old man of the sea comes up from under the waves, heralded by the west wind that furs the water over his head. As soon as he has come up, he lies down and goes to sleep in a great sea cave, where the seals, hallucinies, chickens as they call them, come up also from the grey sea, and go to sleep in shoals all around him, and a very strong and fish-like smell do they bring with them. Early tomorrow morning I will take you to this place, and will lay you in ambush. Pick out, therefore, the 3 best men you have in your fleet, and I will tell you all the tricks that the old man will play you. First he will look over all his seals and count them. Then, when he has seen them and tallied them on his 5 fingers, he will go to sleep among them, as a shepherd among his sheep. The moment you see that he is asleep, seize him. Put forth all your strength and hold him fast, for he will do his very utmost to get away from you. He will turn himself into every kind of creature that goes upon the earth, and will become also both fire and water. But you must hold him fast and grip him tighter and tighter till he begins to talk to you and comes back to what he was when you saw him go to sleep. Then you may slacken your hold and let him go, and you can ask him which of the gods it is that is angry with you, and what you must do to reach your home over the seas." Having so said, she dived under the waves, whereon I turned back to the place where my ships were ranged upon the shore, and my heart was clouded with care as I went along. When I reached my ship, we got supper ready, for night was falling, and camped down upon the beach. When the child of morning rosy-fingered dawn appeared, I took the 3 men on whose prowess of all kinds I could most rely, and went along by the seaside, praying heartily to heaven. Meanwhile, the goddess fetched me up 4 seal skins from the bottom of the sea, all of them just skinned, for she meant playing a trick upon her father. Then she dug 4 pits for us to lie in, and sat down to wait till we should come up. When we were close to her, she made us lie down in the pits one after the other, and threw a sealskin over each of us. Our ambuscade would have been intolerable, for the stench of the fishy seals was almost distressing. Who would go to bed with a sea monster if he could help it? But here, too, the goddess helped us, and thought of something that gave us great relief, for she put some ambrosia under each man's nostrils, which was so fragrant that it killed the smell of the seals. We waited the whole morning and made the best of it, watching the seals come up in hundreds to bask upon the seashore, till at noon the old man of the sea came up too. And when he had found his fat seals, he went over to them and counted them. We were among the first he counted, and he never suspected any guile, but laid himself down to sleep as soon as he had done counting. Then he rushed upon him with a shout and seized him, and he began at once with his old tricks, and changed himself first into a lion with a great mane. Then all of a sudden he became a dragon, a leopard, a wild boar. The next moment he was running water, and then again directly he was a tree. But we stuck to him, and never lost hold, till at last the cunning old creature became distressed and said, "Which of the gods was it, son of Atreus, that hatched this plot with you for snaring me and seizing me against my will? What do you want?" "You know that yourself, old man," I answered. "You will gain nothing by trying to put me off. It is because I have been kept so long in this island, and see no sign of my being able to get away. I am losing all heart. Tell me, then, for you gods know everything, which of the immortals is it that is hindering me, and tell me also how I may sail the sea so as to reach my home." "Then," he said, "if you would finish your voyage and get home quickly, You must offer sacrifices to Jove and to the rest of the gods before embarking. For it is decreed that you shall not get back to your friends and to your own house till you have returned to the heaven-fed stream of Egypt, and offered holly hecatombs to the immortal gods that reign in heaven. When you have done all this, they will let you finish your voyage. I was broken-hearted when I heard that I must go back all that long and terrible voyage to Egypt. Nevertheless, I answered, I will do all, old man, that you have laid upon me. But now tell me, and tell me true, whether all the Achaeans whom Nestor and I left behind us when we set sail from Troy have gotten home safely, or whether any of them have came to a bad end, either on board his own ship or among his friends when the days of his fighting were done. Son of Atreus, he answered, why ask me? You had better not know what I can tell you, for your eyes will surely fill when you have heard my story. Many of those about whom you ask are dead and gone, but many still remain, and only 2 of the chief men among the Achaeans perished during their return home. As for what happened on the field of battle, you were there yourself. A 3rd Achaean leader is still at sea, alive, but hindering from returning. Ajax was wrecked, for Neptune drove him onto the great rocks of Gyrae. Nevertheless, he let him get safe out of the water, and in spite of all Minerva's hatred, he would have escaped death if he had not ruined himself by boasting. He said the gods could not drown him, even though they tried to do so, and when Neptune heard this large talk, he seized his trident in his 2 brawny hands and split the rock of Gyrae in 2 pieces. The base remained where it was, but the part on which Ajax was sitting fell headlong into the sea and carried Ajax with it, so he drank salt water and was drowned. Your brother and his ships escaped, for Juno protected him. But when he was just about to reach the high promontory of Malea, he was caught by a heavy gale which carried him out to sea again, sorely against his will, and drove him to the foreland where Thyestes used to dwell, but where Aegisthus was then living. Aegisthus. By and by, however, it seemed as though he was to return safely after all, for the gods backed the wind into its old quarter, and they reached home, whereon Agamemnon kissed his native soil and shed tears of joy at finding himself in his own country. Now there was a watchman whom Aegisthus kept always on the watch, and to whom he had promised 2 talents of gold. This man had been looking out for a whole year to make sure that Agamemnon did not give him the slip and prepare war. When therefore this man saw Agamemnon go by, he went and told Aegisthus, who at once began to lay a plot for him. He picked 20 of his bravest warriors and placed them in an ambuscade on one side of the cloister, while on the opposite side he prepared a banquet. Then he sent his chariots and horsemen to Agamemnon and invited him to the feast, but he meant foul play. He got him there, all unsuspicious of the doom that was awaiting him, and killed him when the banquet was over, as though he were butchering an ox in the shambles. Not one of Agamemnon's followers was left alive, nor yet one of Aegisthus, but they were all killed there in the cloisters. Thus spoke Proteus, and I was broken-hearted as I heard him. I sat down upon the sands and wept. I felt as though I could no longer bear to live nor look upon the light of the sun. Presently, when I had had my fill of weeping and writhing upon the ground, the old man of the sea said, Son of Atreus, do not waste any more time in crying so bitterly. It can do no manner of good. Find your way home as fast as ever you can, for Aegisthus may still be alive, and even though Orestes has been beforehand with you in killing him, you may yet come in for his funeral. On this I took comfort in spite of all my sorrow, and said, I know then about these 2 Tell me, therefore, about the third man of whom you spoke. Is he still alive, but at sea and unable to get home? Or is he dead? Tell me, no matter how much it may grieve me. The third man, he answered, is Ulysses, who dwells in Ithaca. I can see him in an island, sorrowing bitterly in the house of the nymph Calypso, who is keeping him prisoner, and he cannot reach his home, for he has no ships nor sailors to take him over the sea. As for your own end, Menelaus, you shall not die in Argos, but the gods will take you to the Elysian plain, which is at the ends of the world. There, fair-haired Rhadamanthus reigns, and men lead an easier life than anywhere else in the world, for in Elysium there falls not rain nor hail nor snow, but Oceanus breathes ever with a west wind that sings softly from the sea and gives fresh life to all men. This will happen to you because you have married Helen and are Jove's son-in-law. As he spoke, he dived under the waves, whereon I turned back to the ships with my companions. Goodness, I'm yawning. Blah. Let's see. Okay. As he spoke and dived under the waves, whereon I turned my back to the ships with my companions, and my heart was clouded with care as I went along. When we reached the ships, we got supper ready, for night was falling, and camped down upon the beach. When the child of morning rosy-fingered dawn appeared, we drew our ships into the water, and put our masts and sails within them. Then we went on board ourselves, took our seats on the benches, and smote the grey sea with our oars. I again stationed my ships in the heaven-fed stream of Egypt, and offered hecatombs that were full and sufficient. When I had thus appeased heaven's anger, I raised a barrow to the memory of Agamemnon, that his name might live forever, after which I had a quick passage home, for the gods sent me a fair wind. And now for yourself. Stay here some 10 or 12 days longer, and I will then speed you on your way. I will make you a noble present of a chariot and 3 horses. I will also give you a beautiful chalice, so that so long as you live you may think of me whenever you make a drink offering to the immortal gods. Son of Atreus, replied Telemachus, do not press me to stay longer. I should be contented to remain with you for another 12 months. I find your conversation so delightful that I should never once wish myself at home with my parents. But my crew, whom I have left at Pylos, are already impatient, and you are detaining me from them. As for any present you may be disposed to make me, I had rather that it should be a piece of plate. I will take no horses back with me to Ithaca, but will leave them to adorn your own stables, for you have much flat ground in your kingdom where lotus thrives, as also meadows sweet and wheat and barley and oats, with their white and spreading ears. Whereas in Ithaca we have neither open fields nor racecourses, and the country is more fit for goats than horses, and I like it the better for that. None of our islands have much level ground suitable for horses, and Ithaca least of all. Menelaus smiled and took Telemachus' hand within his own. What you say, said he, shows that you come of good family. I both can and will make this exchange for you, by giving you the finest and most precious piece of plate in all of my house. It is a mixing bowl by Vulcan's own hand, of pure silver, except the rim, which is inlaid with gold. Fatimus, king of the Sidonians, gave it me in the course of a visit which I paid him when I returned thither on my homeward journey. I will make you a present of it. Thus did they converse, and guests kept coming to the king's house. They brought sheep and wine while their wives had put up bread for them to take with them, so they were busy cooking their dinners in the courts. Meanwhile, the suitors were throwing discs or aiming with spears at a mark on the leveled ground in front of Ulysses' house, and were behaving with all of their old insolence. Antinous and Eurymachus, who were their ringulators and much the foremost among them all, were sitting together when Noemon said, son of Phronius, came up and said to Antinous, Ezra Spell. Hello there, thank you for the raid. Welcome in, everybody.
Magic.
Thank you, Soraka, for the follow. You are now guest of the study. Please enjoy the vibes. But yeah, how y'all doing? What were you up to, Ezra? Were you also doing some ASMR? You have such a cool design? Aw, thank you, Sora. And hello, Ezra. I am Illis, a mostly comfy, but also occasionally chaotic lich. Wednesdays are... I've started reading on Wednesdays. Today is the Odyssey. Last week I read books 1 through 3. Today 4 through 6, and maybe 7, depending on how my voice is doing. But yeah. Reading some Lovecraft to your chat. Ooh, very nice. I do plan on getting into that at some point. But right now it's the book, the Odyssey. I'll get to Lovecraft later, along with like other public domain stuff. Yeah, comfy. I'm still, let's see, how far are we into book 4? Oh no, yeah, we still got a good ways to go for book 4. But yeah, welcome in everyone. Feel free to just vibe as I just keep reading. But thanks for coming in, everybody. Hope you enjoy your time here. Let's see, where was I? BRB? Oh, Gucci's Mark. Sadly need to go to bed. Hope you have a great stream. Why, thank you, Sora. Hope you get some good rest. And I'm gonna take a drink real quick. Alrighty. Meanwhile, the suitors were throwing discs. Oh no, I already said that one. Have we any idea, Antinous, on what day Telemachus returns from Pylos? He has a ship of mine, and I want it, to cross over to Illis. I have 12 broodmares there with yearling mulefowls by their side, not yet broken in, and I want to bring one of them over here and break him. They were astounded when they heard this, for they had made sure that Telemachus had not gone to the city of Neleus. They thought he was only away somewhere on the farms, and was with the sheep or with the swineherd, so Antinius said. When did he go? Tell me truly, and what young men did he take with him? Were they freemen, or of his own bondsmen? For he might manage that too. Tell me also, did you let him have the ship of your own free will because he asked you? Or did he take it without your leave? I lent it him, answered Noemon. What else could I do when a man of his position said he was in a difficulty, and asked me to oblige him? I could not possibly refuse. As for those who went with him, they were the best young men we have, and I saw Mentor go on board as captain, or some god who is exactly like him. I cannot understand it, for I saw Mentor here myself yesterday morning, and yet he was then setting out for Pylos. Noemon then went back to his father's house, but Antinous and Eurymachus were very angry. They were told the others to leave off playing, and to come and sit down along with themselves. When they came, Antinous, son of Eupeithes, spoke in anger. His heart was black with rage, and his eyes flashed fire as he said, "Good heavens, this voyage of Telemachus is a very serious matter. We had made sure that it would come to nothing, but the young fellow has got away in spite of us, and with a picked crew too." Sorry, I'm getting a little burpy, so I'm going to mute myself. Okay. He will be giving us trouble presently. May Jove take him before he is full grown. Find me a ship, therefore, with a crew of 20 men, and I will lie in wait for him in the straits between Ithaca and Samos. He will then rue the day that he set out to try and get news of his father. Thus did he speak, and the others applauded his saying. They then all of them went inside the buildings. It was not long ere Penelope came to know what the suitors were plotting, for a manservant, Medon, overheard them from outside the outer court as they were laying their schemes within, and went to tell his mistress. Up, yawning. Hold up. Oh, goodness. Oh, wakey, wakey, model. Okay, there we go. As he crossed the threshold of her room, Penelope said, "Medon, what have the suitors sent you here for? Is it to tell the maids to leave their master's business and cook dinner for them? I wish they may neither woo nor dine henceforward, neither here nor anywhere else. But let this be the very last time, for the waste you all make of my son's estate. Did not your fathers tell you when you were children how good Ulysses had been to them, never doing anything high-handed nor speaking harshly to anybody? Kings may say things sometimes, and they may take a fancy to one man and dislike another, but Ulysses never did an unjust thing by anybody, which shows what bad hearts you have, and that there is no such thing as gratitude left in this world." Then Medon said, "I wish, madam, that this were all, but they are plotting something much more dreadful now. May heaven frustrate their design. They are going to try and murder Telemachus as he is coming home from Pylos and Lacedaemon, where he has been to get news of his father." Then Penelope's heart sank within her, and for a long time she was speechless. Her eyes filled with tears, and she could find no utterance. At last, however, she said, "Why did my son leave? What business had he to go sailing off in ships that make long voyages over the ocean like seahorses? Does he want to die without leaving anyone behind him to keep up his name?" "I do not know," answered Medon, "whether some god set him on to it, or whether he went on his own impulse to see if he could find out if his father was dead or alive and on his way home." Then he went downstairs again, leaving Penelope in an agony of grief. There were plenty of seats in this house, but she had no heart for sitting on any of them. She could only fling herself on the floor of her own room and cry, whereon all the maids in the house, both old and young, gathered around her and began to cry too, till at least in a transport of sorrow she exclaimed, "My dears, heaven has pleased to try me with more affliction than any other woman of my age and country. First, I had lost my brave and lion-hearted husband, who had every good quality under heaven, and whose name was great over all Hellas and middle Argos. And now my darling son is at the mercy of the winds and waves, without my having heard one word about his leaving home. You hussies, there was not one of you would so much as think of giving me a call out of my bed, though you all of you very well knew when he was starting. I need another drink. Okay. See, starting. Okay. If I had known he meant taking this voyage, he would have had to give it up, no matter how much he was bent upon it, or leave me a corpse behind him, one or the other. Now, however, go some of you and call old Dolius, who was given me by my father on my marriage, who is my gardener. Bid him go at once and tell everything to Laertes, who may be able to hit on some plan for enlisting public sympathy on our side, as against those who are trying to exterminate his own race and that of Ulysses. Then the dear old nurse Euryclea said, "You may kill me, madam, or let me live in your house, whichever you please, but I will tell you the real truth. I knew all about it, and gave him everything he wanted in the way of bread and wine, but he made me take my solemn oath that I would not tell you anything for some 10 or 12 days, unless you asked or happened to hear of his having gone, for he did not want you to spoil your beauty by crying. And now, madam, wash your face, change your dress, and go upstairs with your maids to offer prayers to Minerva, daughter of aegis-bearing Jove, for she can save him, even though he be in the jaws of death. Do not trouble Laertes. He has trouble enough already. Besides, I cannot think that the gods hate the race of the son of Arcesius so much. But there will be a son left to come up after him, and inherit both the house and the fair fields that lie far all around it." With these words, she made her mistress leave off crying, and dried the tears from her eyes. Penelope washed her face, changed her dress, and went upstairs with her maids. She then put some bruised barley into a basket and began praying to Minerva. "Hear me," she cried, "daughter of aegis-bearing Jove, unweariable. If ever Ulysses, while he was here, burned you fat thigh bones of sheep or heifer, bear it in mind now as in my favor, and save my darling son from the villainy of the suitors." She cried aloud as she spoke, and the goddess heard her prayer. Meanwhile the suitors were clamorous throughout the covered cloister, and one of them said, "The queen is preparing for her marriage with one or other of us. Little does she dream that her son has now been doomed to die." God, my throat is just bleh. And another yawn. Hold up.
Drinking out of cups, being a bitch.
How dare you? Alright. Thank you for the hydrate. Actually, that reminds me. I should... Let me get that situated real fast. Okay. This way, it doesn't play that sound clip for hydrate, but the big stretch, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it shouldn't I shouldn't play it anymore. For right now. Let me just do a test. Consume agua.
Drinking out of cups.
Oh, it's still doing it.
Being a bitch.
If that's the case, then where's trigger fire? That one. Okay, we'll just hide it. So then I play it.
Drinking out of cups.
No,
Being a bitch.
doing it. Don't. That is weird. Oh. I don't see it coming up much, so we should be fine. So let's see. She cried out. Yeah, okay. This was what they said, but they didn't know what was going to happen. Then Antinous said, "Comrades, let there be no loud talking, lest some of it get carried inside. Let us be up and do that in silence, about which we are all of a mind." He then chose 20 men, and they went down to their ship into the seaside. They drew the vessel into the water, and got her mast and sails inside her. They bound the oars to the thole-pins with twisted thongs of leather, all in due course, and spread the white sails aloft, while their fine servants brought them their armor. Then they made the ship fast a little way out, came on shore again, got their suppers, and waited till night should fall. But Penelope lay in her own room upstairs, unable to eat or drink, and wondering whether her brave son would escape, or be overpowered by the wicked suitors. Like a lioness caught in the toils with huntsmen hemming her in on every side, she thought and thought till she sank into a slumber, and lay on her bed bereft of thought and motion. Then Minerva bethought her of another matter, and made a vision in the likeness of Penelope's sister Iphthime, daughter of Icarius, who had married Eumelus and lived in Pherae. She told the vision to go to the house of Ulysses, and to make Penelope leave off crying, so it came into her room by the hole through which the thong went for pulling the door to, and hovered over her head, saying, "You are asleep, Penelope. The gods who live at ease will not suffer you to weep and be so sad. Your son has done them no wrong, so he will yet come back to you." Penelope, who was sleeping sweetly at the gates of dreamland, answered, "Sister, why have you come here? You do not come very often, but I suppose that is because you live such a long way off. Am I, then, to leave off crying and refrain from all the sad thoughts that torture me?"
Magic.
Bumbling Bear, thank you for the follow. You are now guest of the study. Please enjoy the vibes. I who have lost my brave and lion-hearted husband, who had every good quality under heaven, and whose name was great all over Hellas and Middle Argos. And now my darling son has gone off on board of a ship, a foolish fellow who has never been used to roughing it, nor to going about among gatherings of men. I am even more anxious about him than about my husband. I am all in a tremble when I think of him, lest something should happen to him, either from the people among whom he has gone, or by sea, for he has many enemies who are plotting against him, and are bent on killing him before he can return home. Let me take another drink. Then the vision said, "Take heart, and be not so much dismayed. There is one gone with him, whom many a man would be glad enough to have stand by his side. I mean Minerva. It is she who has compassion upon you, and who has sent me to bear you this message. Then, as said Penelope, if you are a god or have been sent here by divine commission, tell me. Tell me also about that other unhappy one. Is he still alive, or is he already dead and in the house of Hades? And the vision said, I shall not tell you for certain whether he is alive or dead, and there is no use in idle conversation. Then it vanished through the thong hole of the door and was dissipated into thin air. But Penelope rose from her sleep refreshed and comforted, so vivid had been her dream. Meantime, the suitors went on board and sailed their ways over the sea, intent on murdering Telemachus. Now there is a rocky islet called Asteris, of no great size, in mid-channel between Ithaca and Samos, and there is a harbor on either side of it where a ship can lie. Here then the Achaeans placed themselves in ambush. End of Book 4. That felt like a much longer book compared to the others. Oh yeah, that was definitely longer. Okay, the next two look to be what you expect with the first three. Okay. Hold up, another yawn. Oh, come on. Wakey, wakey, model. Alright. The Odyssey. Book 5. And now, as dawn rose from her couch beside Tithonus, harbinger of light alike to mortals and immortals, the gods met in council, and with them Jove, the lord of thunder, who is their king. Theron Minerva, began to tell them of the many sufferings of Ulysses, for she pitied him away there in the house of the nymph Calypso. Father Jove, said she, and all you other gods that live in everlasting bliss, I hope there may never be such a thing as a kind and well-disposed ruler any more, nor one who will govern equitably. I hope they will be all henceforth cruel and unjust, for there is not one of his subjects but has forgotten Ulysses, who ruled them as though he were their father. There he is, lying in great pain in an island where dwells the nymph Calypso, who will not let him go, and he cannot get back to his own country, for he can find neither ships nor sailors to take him over the sea. Furthermore, wicked people are now trying to murder his only son, Telemachus, who is coming home from Pylos in Lacedaemon, where he has been to see if he can get news of his father. What, my dear, are you talking about? Replied her father. Did you not send him there yourself because you thought it would help Ulysses to get home and punish the suitors? Besides, you are perfectly able to protect Telemachus and to see him safely home again, while the suitors have to come hurry-scurrying back without having killed him. Love the voice and the vibe. Sadly, I have to go, but I hope you have a great rest of your stream. Why, thank you, Bumbling Bear. Hope you have a good rest of your day, or night, or time zone, wherever you are. Have a good one. When he had thus spoken, he said to his son Mercury, Mercury, you are our messenger. Go therefore and tell Calypso we have decreed that poor Ulysses is to return home. He is to be convoyed neither by gods nor men, but after a perilous voyage of 20 days upon a raft he is to reach fertile Scuria, the land of the Phaeacians, who are near of kin to the gods, and will honor him as though he were one of ourselves. They will send him in a ship to his own country, and will give him more bronze and gold and raiment than he would have brought back from Troy, if he had had all his prize money and had got home without disaster. This is how we have settled that he shall return to his country and his friends." Thus he spoke, and Mercury, guide and guardian, slayer of Argus, did as he was told. Forthwith he bound on his glittering golden sandals with which he could fly like the wind over land and sea. He took the wand with which he seals men's eyes in sleep or wakes them just as he pleases, and flew holding it in his hand over Pieria. Then he swooped down through the firmament till he reached the level of the sea, whose waves he skimmed like a cormorant that flies fishing every hole and corner of the ocean, and drenching its thick plumage in the spray. He flew and flew over many a weary wave, but when at last he got to the island, which was his journey's end, he left the sea and went on by land till he came to the cave where the nymph Calypso lived. He found her at home. There was a large fire burning on the hearth, and one could smell from far the fragrant reek of burning cedar and sandalwood. As for herself, she was busy at her loom, shooting her golden shuttle through the warp and singing beautifully. Round her cave was a thick wood of alder, poplar, and sweet-smelling cypress trees, wherein all kinds of great birds had built their nests, owls, hawks, and chattering sea crows that occupy their business in the waters. A vine loaded with grapes was trained and grew luxuriantly about the mouth of the cave. There were also 4 running rills of water in channels cut pretty close together, and turned hither and thither so as to irrigate the beds of violets and luscious herbage over which they flowed. Even a god could not help being charmed with such a lovely spot, so Mercury stood still and looked at it. But when he had admired it sufficiently, he went inside the cave. Calypso knew him at once, for the gods all know each other, no matter how far they live from one another. But Ulysses was not within. He was on the seashore as usual, looking out upon the barren ocean with tears in his eyes, groaning and breaking his heart for sorrow. Calypso gave Mercury a seat and said, "Why have you come to me? See me, Mercury, honored and ever welcome, for you do not visit me often. Say what you want. I will do it for you at once if I can, and if it can be done at all, but come inside and let me set refreshment before you." As she spoke, she drew a table loaded with ambrosia beside him, and mixed him some red nectar. So Mercury ate and drank till he had had enough, and then said, "We are speaking god and goddess to one another, and you ask me why I have come here, and I will tell you truly as you would have me do. Jove sent me. It was no doing of mine. Who could possibly want to come all this way over the sea, where there are no cities full of people to offer me sacrifices or choice hecatombs? Nevertheless I had to come, for none of us other gods can cross Jove nor transgress his orders. He says that you have here the most ill-starred of all those who fought 9 years before the city of King Priam and sailed home in the 10th year, after having sacked it. On their way home they sinned against Minerva, who raised both wind and waves against them, so that all his brave companions perished, and he alone was carried hither by wind and tide. Jove says that you are to let this man go at once, for it is decreed that he shall not perish here, far from his own people, but shall return to his house and country, and see his friends again." Calypso trembled with rage when she heard this. "You gods," she exclaimed, "ought to be ashamed of yourselves. You are always jealous and hate seeing a goddess take a fancy to a mortal man, and live with him in open matrimony. So when rosy-fingered Dawn made love to Orion, you precious gods were all of you furious till Diana went and killed him in Ortygia. So again when Ceres fell in love with Iosian, and yielded to him in the thrice-plowed fallow field, Jove came to hear of it before so very long and killed Iosian. with his thunderbolts. And now you are angry with me too, because I have a man here. I found the poor creature sitting all alone astride of a keel, for Jove had struck his ship with lightning and sunk it in mid-ocean, so that all his crew were drowned, while he himself was driven by wind and waves onto my island. I got fond of him and cherished him, and I had set my heart on making him immortal, so that he should never grow old all his days. Still, I cannot cross Jove nor bring his counsels to nothing. Therefore, if he insist upon it, let the man go beyond the seas again. But I cannot send him anywhere myself, for I have neither ships nor men who can take him. Nevertheless, I will readily give him such advice, in all good faith, as will be likely to bring him safely to his own country. Then send him away, said Mercury, or Jove will be angry with you and punish you. On this he took his leave, and Calypso went out to look for Ulysses, for she had heard Jove's message. She found him sitting upon the beach with his eyes ever filled with tears, and dying of sheer homesickness. For he had got tired of Calypso, and though he was forced to sleep with her in the cave by night, it was she, not he, that would have it so. As for the daytime, he spent it on the rocks and on the seashore, weeping, crying aloud for his despair, and always looking out upon the sea. Calypso then went close up to him and said, "My poor fellow, you shall not stay here grieving and fretting your life out any longer. I am going to send you away of my own free will, so go cut some beams of wood and make yourself a large raft with an upper deck that it may carry you safely over the sea. I will put bread, wine, and water on board to save you from starving. I will also give you clothes, and will send you a fair wind to take you home, if the gods in heaven so will it. For they know more about these things, and can settle them better than I can." Ulysses shuddered as he heard her. "Now, goddess," he answered, "there is something behind all this. You cannot be really meaning to help me home when you bid me do such a dreadful thing as put to sea on a raft. Not even a well-found ship with a fair wind could venture on such a distant voyage. Nothing that you can say or do shall shake me go on board a raft unless you first solemnly swear that you mean me no mischief." Calypso smiled at this and caressed him with her hand. "You know a great deal," said she, "but you are quite wrong here. May heaven above and earth below be my witness, with the waters of the river Styx, and this is the most solemn oath which a blessed god can take, that I mean you no sort of harm, and am only advising you to do exactly what I should do myself in your place. I am dealing with you quite straightforwardly. My heart is not made of iron, and I am very sorry for you." When she had thus spoken, she led the way rapidly before him, and Ulysses followed in her steps. So the pair, goddess and man, went on until they came to Calypso's cave, where Ulysses took the seat that Mercury had just left. Calypso set meat and drink before him, of the food that mortals eat, but her maids brought ambrosia and nectar for herself, and they laid their hands on the good things that were before them. When they had satisfied themselves with meat and drink, Calypso spoke, saying, "Ulysses, noble son of Laertus, so you would start home to your own land at once. Good luck go with you, but if you could only know how much suffering is in store for you before you get back to your own country, you would stay where you are, keep house along with me, and let me make you immortal, no matter how anxious you may be to see this wife of yours, of whom you are thinking all the time, day after day. Yet I flatter myself that I am no whit less tall or well-looking than she is, for it is not to be expected that a mortal woman should compare in beauty with an immortal." "Goddess," replied Ulysses, "do not be angry with me about this. I am quite aware that my wife Penelope is nothing like so tall or so beautiful as yourself. She is only a woman, whereas you are an immortal. Nevertheless, I want to get home, and can think of nothing else. If some god wrecks me when I am on the sea, I will bear it and make the best of it. I have had infinite trouble both by land and sea already, so let this go with the rest. Presently the sun set, and it became dark, whereon the pair retired into the inner part of the cave and went to bed. When the child of morning rosy-fingered dawn appeared, Ulysses put on his shirt and cloak, while the goddess wore a dress of a light gossamer fabric, very fine and graceful, with a beautiful golden girdle about her waist and a veil to cover her head. She at once set herself to think how she could speed Ulysses on his way. So she gave him a great bronze axe that suited his hands. It was sharpened on both sides and had a beautiful olive wood handle fitted firmly into it. She also gave him a sharp adze, and then led the way to the far end of the island, where the largest trees grew, alder, poplar, and pine, that reached the sky, very dry and well seasoned, so as to sail light for him in the water. Then, when she had shown him where the best trees grew, Calypso went home, leaving him to cut them, which he soon finished doing. He cut down 20 trees in all, and adzed them smooth, squaring them by rule in good workmanlike fashion. Meanwhile, Calypso came back with some augers, so he bored holes with them, and fitted the timbers together with bolts and rivets. He made the raft as broad as a skilled shipwright makes the beam of a large vessel, and he fixed a deck on top of the ribs, and ran a gunwale all around it. He also made a mast with a yard arm, and a rudder to steer with. He fenced the raft all around with wicker hurdles, as a protection against the waves, and then he threw on a quantity of wood. By and by, Calypso brought him some linen to make the sails, and he made these too, excellently, making them fast with braces and sheets. Last of all, with the help of levers, he drew the raft down into the water. In 4 days, he had completed the whole work, and on the 5th, Calypso sent him from the island after washing him and giving him some clean clothes. Hello, Kahai. How are you doing? We're on book 5 of the Odyssey. She gave him a goat skin full of black wine and another larger one of water. She also gave him a wallet full of provisions and found him in much good meat. Moreover, she made the wind fair and warm for him, and gladly did Ulysses spread his sail before it, while he sat and guided the raft skillfully by means of the rudder. He never closed his eyes, but kept them fixed on the Pleiades, on late-setting Bootes, and on the Bear, which men also call the Wain, and which turns around and round where it is, facing Orion, and alone never dipping into the stream of Oceanus, for Calypso had told him to keep this to his left. Days 7 and 10 did he sail over the sea, and on the 18th the dim outlines of the mountains on the nearest part of the Phaeacian coast appeared, rising like a shield on the horizon. But King Neptune, who was returning from the Ethiopians, caught sight of Ulysses a long way off, from the mountains of the Salami. He could see him sailing upon the sea, and it made him very angry. So he wagged his head and muttered to himself, saying, "Good heavens! So the gods have been changing their minds about Ulysses while I was away in Ethiopia, and now he is close to the land of the Phaeacians, where it is decreed that he shall escape from the calamities that have befallen him. Still, he shall have plenty of hardship yet before he has done with it." Thereon he gathered his clouds together, grasped his trident, stirred it around in the sea, and roused the rage of every wind that blows till earth, sea, and sky were hidden in cloud, and night sprang forth out of the heavens. Winds from east, south, north, and west fell upon him all at the same time, and a tremendous sea got up, so that Ulysses' heart began to fail him. Alas, he said to himself in his dismay, whatever will become of me? I am afraid Calypso was right when she said I should have trouble by sea before I got back home. It is all coming true. How black is Jove making heaven with these clouds, and what a sea the winds are raising from every quarter at once. I am now safe to perish. Blessed and thrice blessed were those Danaans who fell before Troy in the cause of the sons of Atreus. Would that I had been killed on the day when the Trojans were pressing me so sorely about the dead body of Achilles, for then I should have had due burial, and the Achaeans would have honored my name. But now it seems that I shall come to a most pitiable end. I'm gonna get a drink. As he spoke, a sea broke over him with such terrific fury that the raft reeled again, and he was carried overboard a long way off. He let go of the helm, and the force of the hurricane was so great that it broke the mast halfway up, and both sail and yard went over into the sea. Sorry, little burpee, hold up. Okay. Let's see. Okay. For a long time, Ulysses was under the water, and it was all he could do to rise to the surface again, for the clothes Calypso had given him weighed him down. But at last he got his head above water, and spat out the bitter brine that was running down his face in streams. In spite of all this, however, he did not lose sight of his raft, but swam as fast as he could towards it, got hold of it, and climbed on board again so as to escape drowning. The sea took the raft and tossed it about as autumn winds whirled thistledown round and round upon a road. It was as though the south, north, east, and west winds were all playing battledore and shuttlecock with it at once. Those are some interesting words. Battledore. Never heard that one before. When he was in this plight, Ino, daughter of Cadmus, also called Leucothea, saw him. She had formerly been a mere mortal, but had been since raised to the rank of a marine goddess. Seeing in what great distress Ulysses now was, she had compassion upon him, and, rising like a seagull from the waves, took her seat upon the raft. "My poor good man," said she, "why is Neptune so furiously angry with you? He is giving you a great deal of trouble, but for all his bluster he will not kill you. You seem to be a sensible person. Do then as I bid you. Strip, leave your raft to drive before the wind, and swim to the Phaeacian coast where better luck awaits you. And here, take my veil and put it round your chest. It is enchanted, and you can come to no harm so long as you wear it. As soon as you touch land, take it off, throw it back as far as you can into the sea, and then go away again." With these words she took off her veil and gave it to him. Then she dived down again like a seagull and vanished beneath the dark blue waters. But Ulysses did not know what to think. "Alas," he said to himself in his dismay, "this is only someone or other of the gods who is luring me to ruin by advising me to quit my raft. At any rate, I will not do so at present, for the land where she said I should be quit of all trouble seemed to be still a good way off. I know what I will do. I am sure it will be best. No matter what happens, I will stick to the raft as long as her timbers hold together. But when the sea breaks her up, I will swim for it. I do not see how I can do any better than this." While he was thus in two minds, Neptune sent a terrible great wave that seemed to rear itself above his head till it broke right over the raft, which then went to pieces as though it were a heap of dry chaff tossed about by a whirlwind. Ulysses got astride of one plank and rode upon it as if he were on horseback. He then took off the clothes Calypso had given him, bound Ino's veil under his arms, and plunged into the sea, meaning to swim on shore. King Neptune watched him as he did so, and wagged his head, muttering to himself and saying, "There now, swim up and down as you best can till you fall in with well-to-do people. I do not think you will be able to say that I have let you off too lightly." On this he lashed his horses and drove to Aegea, where his palace is. But Minerva resolved to help Ulysses, so she bound the ways of all the winds except one, and made them lie quite still, but she roused a good stiff breeze from the north that should lay the waters till Ulysses reached the land of the Phaeacians, where he would be safe. Thereon he floated about for 2 nights and 2 days in the water, with a heavy swell on the sea and death staring him in the face. But when the 3rd day broke, the wind fell, and there was a dead calm without so much as a breath of air stirring. As he rose on the swell, he looked eagerly ahead, and could see land quite near. Then, as children rejoice when their dear father begins to get better after having for a long time borne sore affliction sent him by some angry spirit. But the gods deliver him from evil, so was Ulysses thankful when he again saw land and trees, and swam on with all his strength, that he might once more set foot upon dry land. When, however, he got within earshot, he began to hear the surf thundering up against the rocks, for the swell still broke against them with a terrific roar. Everything was enveloped in spray. There were no harbors where a ship might ride, nor shelter of any kind, but only headlands, low-lying rocks, and mountain tops. Ulysses' heart now began to fail him, and he said despairingly to himself, "Alas, Jove has let me see land after swimming so far that I had given up all hope, but I can find no landing place, for the coast is rocky and surf-beaten. The rocks are smooth and rise sheer from the sea, with deep water close under them, so that I cannot climb out for want of foothold. I am afraid some great wave will lift me off my legs and dash me against the rocks as I leave the water, which would give me a sorry landing. If, on the other hand, I swim further in search of some shelving beach or harbor, a hurricane may carry me out to sea again, sorely against my will, or heaven may send some great monster of the deep to attack me, for Amphitrite breeds many such, and I know that Neptune is very angry with me." While he was thus in two minds, a wave caught him and took him with such force against the rocks that he would have been smashed and torn to pieces if Minerva had not shown him what to do. He caught hold of the rock with both hands and clung to it, groaning with pain, till the wave retired, so he was saved that time. But presently the wave came on again, and carried him back with it far into the sea, tearing his hands as the suckers of a polypus are torn when someone plucks it from its bed, and the stones come up along with it. Even so did the rocks tear the skin from his strong hands, and then the wave drew him deep down under the water. Here poor Ulysses would have certainly perished even in spite of his own destiny, if Minerva had not helped him to keep his wits about him. He swam seaward again, beyond reach of the surf that was beating against the land, and at the same time he kept looking towards the shore to see if he could find some haven, or a spit that should take the waves aslant. By and by, as he swam on, he came to the mouth of a river, and here he thought would be the best place, for there were no rocks, and it afforded shelter from the wind. He felt that there was a current, so he prayed inwardly and said, "Hear me, O king, whoever you may be, and save me from the anger of the sea god Neptune, for I approach you prayerfully." Anyone who has lost his way at all times a claim even upon the gods. Wherefore in my distress I draw near to your stream, and cling to the knees of your riverhood. Have mercy upon me, O king, for I declare myself your suppliant. Then the god stayed his stream, and stilled the waves, making all calm for him, and bringing him safely into the mouth of the river. Here at last Ulysses' knees and strong hands failed him, for the sea had completely broken him. His body was all swollen, and his mouth and nostrils ran down like a river with sea water, so that he could neither breathe nor speak, and lay swooning from sheer exhaustion. Presently, when he had got his breath and came to himself again, he took off the scarf that Ino had given him, and threw it back into the salt stream of the river, whereon Ino received it into her hands from the wave that bore it towards her. Then he left the river, laid himself down among the rushes, and kissed the bounteous earth. Alas, he cried to himself in his dismay, whatever will become of me, and how is it all to end? If I stay here upon the riverbed through the long watches of the night, I am so exhausted that the bitter cold and damp may make an end of me. For towards sunrise there will be a keen wind blowing off from the river. If, on the other hand, I climb the hillside, find shelter in the woods, and sleep in some thicket, I may escape the cold and have a good night's rest, but some savage beast may take advantage of me and devour me. In the end, he deemed it best to take to the woods, and he found one upon some high ground not far from the water. There he crept beneath 2 shots of olive that grew from a single stalk, the one an ungrafted sucker, while the other had been grafted. No wind, however squally, could break through the cover they afforded, nor could the sun's rays pierce them, nor the rain get through them, so closely did they grow into one another. Ulysses crept under these and began to make himself a bed to lie on, for there was a great litter of dead leaves lying about, enough to make a covering for 2 or 3 men, even in hard winter weather. He was glad enough to see this, so he laid himself down and heaped the leaves all around him. Then, as one who lives alone in the country, far from any neighbor, hides a brand as fire seed in the ashes to save himself from having to get a light elsewhere, even so did Ulysses cover himself up with leaves, and Minerva shed a sweet sleep upon his eyes, closed his eyelids, and made him lose all memories of his sorrow. End Book 5. Good stuff, everybody. Good stuff, good stuff. Let's see. Book 6. Okay, it's about as long as Book 5, so not terribly. But yeah. I'm going to... I need to get more drink, more water and such. So I'm going to take like 2. Give me like 3 minutes or so. And I will. Where is it? Oh, never mind. It already did a thing. All right. But yeah, I'm gonna go get some more water and such. BRB. I have returned. Alrighty then. So yes, we are time for the Odyssey, Book 6. Why are you derping, Morp? You're always derping. I mean, fair, fair. I am too. That's why I had the emote done. But anyway. Book 6 of the Odyssey. The meeting between Nausicaa and Ulysses. Hold up, there's a yawn coming. Oh my goodness. Oh no, I'm too relaxed. Ah. Anyway, alright, Book 6. So here Ulysses slept, overcome by sleep and toil. But Minerva went off to the country and city of the Phaeacians, a people who used to live in the fair town of Hesperia, near the lawless Cyclops. Now the Cyclops were stronger than they and plundered them, so their king Nausithous moved them hence and settled them in Scheria, far from all other people. He surrounded the city with a wall, built houses and temples, and divided the lands among his people. But he was dead and gone to the house of Hades, and King Alcinous, whose counsels were inspired by heaven, was now reigning. To his house, then, did Minerva hie in furtherance on the return of Ulysses. He went straight to the beautifully decorated bedroom, in which there slept a girl who was as lovely as a goddess, Nausicaa, daughter to King Alcinous. Two maidservants were sleeping near her, both very pretty, one on either side of the doorway, which was closed with well-made folding doors. Minerva took the form of the famous sea captain Dymas's daughter, who was a bosom friend of Nausicaa, and just her own age. Then, coming up to the girl's bedside like a breath of wind, she hovered over her head and said, "Nausicaa, what can your mother have been about to have such a lazy daughter? Here are your clothes, all lying in disorder, yet you are going to be married almost immediately, and should not only be well dressed yourself, but should find good clothes for those who attend you. This is the way to get yourself a good name, and to make your father and mother proud of you. Suppose, then, that we make tomorrow a washing day, and start at daybreak. I will come and help you so that you may have everything ready as soon as possible, for all the best young men among your own people are courting you, and you are not going to remain a maid much longer. Ask your father, therefore, to have a wagon and mules ready for us at daybreak, to take the rugs, robes, and girdles, and you can ride too, which will be much pleasanter for you than walking, for the washing cisterns are some way from the town. When she had said this, Minerva went away to Olympus, which they say is the everlasting home of the gods. Here no wind beats roughly, and neither rain nor snow can fall, but it abides in everlasting sunshine, and in great peacefulness of light, wherein the blessed gods are illumined for ever and ever. This was the place to which the goddesses went when she had given instructions to the girl. By and by morning came and woke Nausicaa, who began wondering about her dream. She therefore went to the other end of the house to tell her father and mother all about it, and found them in their own room. Her mother was sitting by the fireside spinning her purple yarn with her maids around her, and she happened to catch her father just as he was going out to attend a meeting of this town council, which the Phaeacian aldermen had convened. She stopped him and said, "Papa dear, could you manage to let me have a good big wagon? I want to take all our dirty clothes to the river and wash them. You are the chief man here, so it is only right that you should have a clean shirt when you attend meetings of the council. Moreover, you have 5 sons at home, 2 of them married, while the other 3 are good-looking bachelors. You know they always like to have clean linen when they go to a dance, and I have been thinking about all this." She did not say a word about her own wedding, for she did not like to, but her father knew and said, "You shall have the mules, my love, and whatever else you have a mind for. Be off with you, and the men shall get you a good strong wagon with a body to it that will hold all your clothes." On this he gave his orders to the servants, who got the wagon out, harnessed the mules, and put them to, while the girl brought the clothes down from the linen room and placed them on the wagon. Also, I love how wagon in this has 2 G's. Like every instance of wagon has 2 G's. Interesting. Her mother prepared her a basket of provisions with all sorts of good things, and a goatskin full of wine. The girl now got into the wagon, and her mother gave her also a golden cruse of oil, that she and her women might anoint themselves. Then she took the whip and reins and lashed the mules on, whereon they set off, and their hoofs clattered on the road. They pulled without flagging, and carried not only Nausicaa and her wash of clothes, but the maids who were with her. Hold up, yawn. Oh, man. More big stretch, yes. Everybody get that good stretch. Okay. Let's see. We are at... There we go. When they reached the waterside, they went to the washing cisterns, through which there ran at all times enough pure water to wash any quantity of linen, no matter how dirty. Here they unharnessed the mules and turned them out to feed on the sweet, juicy herbage that grew by the waterside. They took the clothes out of the wagon, put them in the water, and vied with one another in treading them into the pits to get the dirt out. After they had washed them and got them quite clean, they laid them out by the seaside, where the waves had raised a high beach of shingle, and set about washing themselves and anointing themselves with olive oil. Then they got their dinner by the side of the stream and waited for the sun to finish drying the clothes. When they had done dinner, they threw off the veils that covered their heads and began to play at ball, while Nausicaa sang for them. As the huntress Diana goes forth upon the mountains of Tagetus or Erymanthus to hunt wild boars or deer, and the wood nymphs, daughters of aegis-bearing Jove, take their sport along with her, even so did the girl outshine her handmaids. When it was time for them to start home, and they were folding the clothes and putting them into the wagon, Minerva began to consider how Ulysses should wake up and see the handsome girl who was to conduct him to the city of Phaeacians. The girl, therefore, threw a ball at one of the maids, which missed her and fell into deep water. On this they all shouted, and the noise they made woke Ulysses, who sat up in his bed of leaves and began to wonder what it might all be. "Alas," said he to himself, "what kind of people have I come amongst? Are they cruel, savage, and uncivilized, or hospitable and humane? I seem to hear the voices of young women, and they sound like those of nymphs that haunt mountain-tops, or springs of rivers and meadows of green grass. At any rate, I am among a race of men and women. Let me try if I cannot manage to get a look at them." As he said this, he crept from under the bush and broke off a bough covered with thick leaves to hide his nakedness. He looked like some lion of the wilderness that stalks about exulting in his strength and defying both wind and rain. His eyes glare as he prowls in quest of oxen, sheep, or deer, for he is famished and will dare break even into a well-fenced homestead trying to get at the sheep. Even such did Ulysses seem to the young women as he drew near to them, all naked as he was, for he was in great want. Oh, dang, Ulysses. On seeing one so unkempt and so begrimed with salt water, the others scampered off along the spits that jutted out into the sea. But the daughter of Alcinous stood firm, for Minerva put courage into her heart and took away all fear from her. She stood right in front of Ulysses, and he doubted whether he should go up to her, throw himself at her feet, and embrace her knees as a suppliant, or stay where he was and entreat her to give him some clothes and show him the way to the town. In the end, he deemed it best to entreat her from a distance, in case the girl should take offense at his coming near enough to clasp her knees, so he addressed her in honeyed and persuasive language. "O Queen," he said, "I implore your aid. But tell me, are you a goddess or are you a mortal woman? If you are a goddess and dwell in heaven, I can only conjecture that you are Jove's daughter Diana, for your face and figure resemble none but hers. If, on the other hand, you are a mortal and live on earth, thrice happy are your father and mother. Thrice happy, too, are your brothers and sisters. How proud and delighted they must feel when they see so fair a scion as yourself going out to a dance. Most happy, however, of all will he be whose wedding gifts have been the richest, and who takes you to his own home. I never yet saw anyone so beautiful, neither man nor woman, and am lost in admiration as I behold you. I can only compare you to a young palm tree which I saw when I was at Delos, growing near the altar of Apollo, for I was there too with much people after me, when I was on the journey which has been the source of all my troubles. Never yet did such a young plant shoot out of the ground as that was, and I admired and wondered at it exactly as I now admire and wonder at yourself. I dare not clasp your knees, but I am in great distress. Yesterday made the 20th day that I had been tossing about upon the sea. The winds and waves have taken me all the way from the Ogygian island, and now fate has flung me upon this coast that I may endure still further suffering. For I do not think I have yet come to the end of it, but rather that heaven has still much evil in store for me. And now, O Queen, have pity upon me, for you are the first person I have met, and I know no one else in this country. Show me the way to your town, and let me have anything that you may have brought hither to wrap your clothes in. May heaven grant you in all things in your heart's desire, husband, house, and a happy, peaceful home. For there is nothing better in this world than that man and wife should be of one mind in a house. It discomfits their enemies, makes the hearts of their friends glad, and they themselves know more about it than anyone. To this Nausicaa answered, Stranger, you appear to be a sensible, well-disposed person. There is no accounting for luck. Jove gives prosperity to rich and poor just as he chooses. So you must take what he has seen fit to send you, and make the best of it. Now, however, that you have come to this our country, you shall not want for clothes nor for anything else that a foreigner in distress may reasonably look for. I will show you the way to the town, and will tell you the name of our people. We are called Phaeacians, and I am daughter of Alcinous, in whom the whole power of the state is vested. Then she called her maids and said, Stay where you are, girls. Can you not see a man without running away from him? Do you take him for a robber or a murderer? Neither he nor anyone else can come here to do us Phaeacians any harm, for we are dear to the gods, and live apart on a land's end that juts into the sounding sea, and have nothing to do with any other people. This is only some poor man who has lost his way, and we must be kind to him, for strangers and foreigners in distress are under Jove's protection, and will take what they can get and be thankful. So, girls, give the poor fellow something to eat and drink, and wash him in the stream at some place that is sheltered from the wind. On this, the maids left off running away, and began calling one another back. They made Ulysses sit down near in the shelter as Nausicaa had told them, and brought him a shirt and cloak. They also brought him a little golden cruse of oil, and told him to go and wash in the stream. But Ulysses said, Young women, please to stand a little on one side, that I may wash the brine from my shoulders, and anoint myself with oil. For it is long enough since my skin has had a drop of oil upon it. I cannot wash as long as you all keep standing there. I am ashamed to strip before a number of good-looking young women. Then they stood on one side and went to tell the girl, while Ulysses washed himself in the stream and scrubbed the brine from his back and from his broad shoulders. When he had thoroughly washed himself and had got the brine out of his hair, he anointed himself with oil and put on the clothes which the girl had given him. Minerva then made him look taller and stronger than before. She also made the hair grow thick on the top of his head and flow down in curls like hyacinth blossoms. She glorified him about the head and shoulders as a skillful workman who has studied art of all kinds under Vulcan, and Minerva enriches a piece of silver plate by gilding it, and his work is full of beauty. Then he went and sat down a little way off upon the beach, looking quite young and handsome, and the girl gazed on him with admiration. Then she said to her maids, Hush, my dears, for I want to say something. I believe the gods who live in heaven have sent this man to the Phaeacians. When I first saw him, I thought him plain, but now his appearance is like that of the gods who dwell in heaven. I should like my future husband to be just such another as he is, if he would only stay here and not want to go away. However, give him something to eat and drink. They did as they were told and set food before Ulysses, who ate and drank ravenously, for it was long since he had food of any kind. Meanwhile, Nausicaa bethought her of another matter. She got the linen folded and placed in the wagon. She then yoked the mules, and as she took her seat, she called Ulysses. Stranger, said she, rise and let us be going back to town. I will introduce you at the house of my excellent father, where I can tell you that you will meet all the best people among the Phaeacians. Hold up. Sorry, a little burpy. Let's see. Okay. But be sure and do as I bid you, for you seem to be a sensible person. As long as we are going past the fields and farmlands, follow briskly behind the wagon along with the maids, and I will lead the way myself. Presently, however, we shall come to the town, where you will find a high wall running all around it, and a good harbor on either side with a narrow entrance into the city, and the ships will be drawn up by the roadside, for everyone has a place where his own ship can lie. You will see the marketplace with a temple of Neptune in the middle of it, and paved with large stones bedded in the earth. Here people deal in ship's gear of all kinds, such as cables and sails, and here too are the places where oars are made, for the Phaeacians are not a nation of archers. They know nothing about bows and arrows, but are a seafaring folk, and pride themselves on their mast, oars, and ships, with which they travel far over the sea. I am afraid of the gossip and scandal that may be set on foot against me later on, for the people here are very ill-natured, and some low fellow, if he met us, might say, "Who is this fine-looking stranger that is going about with Nausicaa? Where did she find him? I suppose she is going to marry him. Perhaps he is a vagabond sailor whom she has taken from some foreign vessel, for we have no neighbors, or some god has at last come down from the heaven in answer to her prayers, and she is going to live with him all the rest of her life. It would be a good thing if she would take herself off and find a husband somewhere else, for she will not look at one of the many excellent young Phaeacians who are in love with her." This is the kind of disparaging remark that would be made about me, and I could not complain, for I should myself be scandalized at seeing any other girl do the like, and go about with men in spite of everybody, while her father and mother were still alive, and without having been married in the face of all the world. If, therefore, you want my father to give you an escort and to help you home, do as I bid you. You will see a beautiful grove of poplars by the roadside dedicated to Minerva. It has a well in it and a meadow all around it. Here my father has a field of rich garden ground, about as far from the town as a man's voice will carry. Sit down there and wait for a while till the rest of us can get into the town and reach my father's house. Then, when you think we must have done this, come into the town and ask the way to the house of my father Alcinous. You will have no difficulty in finding it. Any child will point it out to you, for no one else in the whole town has anything like such a fine house as he is. When you have got past the gates and through the outer court, go right across the inner court till you come to my mother. You will find her sitting by the fire and spinning her purple wool by firelight. It is a fine sight to see her, as she leans back against one of the bearing posts, with her maids all ranged behind her. Close to her seat stands that of my mother, on which he sits and topes like an immortal god. Never mind him, but go up to my mother and lay your hands upon her knees if you would get home quickly. If you can gain her over, you may hope to see your own country again, no matter how distant it may be. So saying, the lashed mules with her whip, and they left the river. The mules drew well, and their hoofs went up and down upon the road. She was careful not to go too fast for Ulysses and the maids who were following on foot along with the wagon. So she plied her whip with judgment. As the sun was going down, they came to the sacred grove of Minerva, and there Ulysses sat down and prayed to the mighty daughter of Jove. "Hear me," he cried, "daughter of aegis-bearing Jove, unweariable. Hear me now, for you gave me no heed to my prayers when Neptune was wrecking me. Now, therefore, have pity upon me, and grant that I may find friends and be hospitably received by the Phaeacians." Thus did he pray, and Minerva heard his prayer, but she would not show herself to him openly, for she was afraid of her uncle Neptune, who was still furious in his endeavors to prevent Ulysses from getting home. End book 6. Let's see how. I don't know. I could probably do another one. Yeah, we'll do 7. We'll do book 7. Okay. Let me just take a little sippy. Get a little stretch action going on here. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So, Book 7 of the Odyssey. Reception of Ulysses at the palace of King Alcinous. Thus then did Ulysses wait and pray, but the girl drove on to the town. When she reached her father's house, she drew up at the gateway, and her brothers, comely as the gods, gathered round her, took the mules out of the wagon, and carried the clothes into the house, while she went to her own room, where an old servant, Eurymedusa of Epira, lit the fire for her. This old woman had been brought by sea from Epira, and had been chosen as a prize for Alcinous because he was king over the Phaeacians, and the people obeyed him as though he were a god. She had been nurse to Nausicaa, and had now lit the fire for her, and brought her supper for her into her own room. Presently, Ulysses got up to go towards the town, and Minerva shed a thick mist all around him to hide him in case any of the proud Phaeacians who met him should be rude to him, or ask him who he was. Then, as he was just entering town, she came towards him in the likeness of a little girl carrying a pitcher. She stood right in front of him, and Ulysses said, "My dear, will you be so kind as to show me the house of King Alcinous? I am an unfortunate foreigner in distress, and do not know one in your town and country." Then Minerva said, "Yes, father stranger, I will show you the house that you want, for Alcinous lives quite close to my own father. I will go before you and show you the way, but say not a word as you go, and do not look at any man, nor ask him any questions, for the people here cannot abide strangers, and do not like men who come from some other place. They are a seafaring folk, and sail the seas by the grace of Neptune in ships that glide along like thought, or as a bird in the air." Sippy. On this she led the way, and Ulysses followed in her steps. But not one of the Phaeacians could see him as he passed through the city in the midst of them, for the great goddess Minerva, in her goodwill towards him, had hidden him in a thick cloud of darkness. He admired their harbors, ships, places of assembly, and the lofty walls of the city, which, with the palisade on top of them, were very striking. And when they reached the king's house, Minerva said, "This is the house, father stranger, which you would have me show you. You will find a number of great people sitting at table, but do not be afraid. Go straight in, for the bolder a man is, the more likely he is to carry his point, even though he is a stranger. First find the queen. Her name is Arete, and she comes of the same family as her husband, Alcinous. They both descend originally from Neptune, who is father to Nausithous by Periboa, a woman of great beauty. Periboa was the youngest daughter of Eurymedon, who at one time reigned over the giants, but he ruined his ill-fated people and lost his own life to boot. Neptune, however, lay with his daughter, and she had a son by him, the great Nausithous, who reigned over the Phaeacians. Nausithous had two sons, Rhexenor and Alcinous. Apollo killed the first of them while he was still a bridegroom and without male issue, but he left a daughter, Eret, whom Alcinous married, and honors as no other woman is honored of all those that keep house along with their husbands. Thus she both was, and still is, respected beyond measure by her children, by Alcinous himself, and by the whole people who look upon her as a goddess and greet her whenever she goes about the city, for she is a thoroughly good woman both in head and heart, and when any woman of are friends of hers, she will help their husbands also to settle their disputes. If you can gain her goodwill, you may have every hope of seeing your friends again, and getting safely back to your home and country. Then Minerva left Scheria, and went away over the sea. She went to Marathon, and to the spacious streets of Athens, where she entered the abode of Erechtheus. But Ulysses went on to the house of Alcinous, and he pondered much as he paused a while before reaching the threshold of bronze, for the splendor of the palace was like that of the sun or moon. The walls on either side were of bronze from end to end, and the cornice? Cornice? Google, help me with this word.
Cornice.
Oh god, that was loud. Sorry, everyone. So, cornice. Okay. And the cornice was of blue enamel. The doors were gold and hung on pillars of silver that rose from a floor of bronze. And while the lintel was silver and the hook of the door was of gold. On either side there stood gold and silver mastiffs, which Vulcan, with his consummate skill, had fashioned expressly to keep watch over the palace of King Alcinous, so they were immortal and could never grow old. Seats were arranged all along the wall, here and there from one end to the other, with coverings of fine woven work, which the women of the house had made. Here the chief persons of the Phaeacians used to sit and eat and drink, for there was an abundance at all seasons, and there were golden figures of young men with lighted torches in their hands. I got a little burpee there. Raised on pedestals to give light by night to those who were at the table. There are 50 maid servants in the house, some of whom are always grinding a rich yellow grain at the mill, while others work at the loom or sit and spin, and their shuttles go backwards and forwards like the fluttering of aspen leaves, while the linen is so closely woven that it will turn oil. As the Phaeacians are the best sailors in the world, so their women excel all others in weaving, for Minerva has taught them all manner of useful arts, and they are very intelligent. Outside the gate of the outer court there is a large garden of about 4 acres with a wall all around it. It is full of beautiful trees, pears, pomegranates, and the most delicious apples. I could go for some apples. There are luscious figs also, and olives in full growth. You can keep those olives away from me. The fruits never rot nor fail all the year round, neither winter nor summer, for the air is so soft that a new crop ripens before the old has dropped. Pear grows on pear, apple on apple, and fig on fig. And so also with the grapes, for there is an excellent vineyard. On the level ground of a part of this, the grapes are being made into raisins. In another part they are being gathered. Some are being trodden in the wine tubs. Others further on have shed their blossoms and are beginning to show fruit. Others again are just changing color. In the furthest part of the ground, there are beautifully arranged beds of flowers that are in bloom all the year round. 2 streams go through it, the one turned in ducts throughout the whole garden, while the other is carried under the ground of the outer court to the house itself, and the townspeople draw water from it. Such, then, were the splendors with which the gods had endowed the house of King Alcinous. So here Ulysses stood for a while and looked about him. But when he had looked in long enough, he crossed the threshold and went within the precincts of the house. There he found all the chief people among the Phaeacians making their drink offerings to Mercury, which they always did the last thing before going away for the night. He went straight through the court, still hidden by the cloak of darkness, in which Minerva had enveloped him, till he reached Aret and King Alcinous. Then he laid his hands upon the knees of the queen, and at that moment the miraculous darkness fell away from him, and he became visible. Everyone was speechless with surprise at seeing a man there, but Ulysses began at once with his petition. "Queen Aret," he exclaimed, "daughter of great Rhexenor, in my distress I humbly pray you, as also your husband and these your guests, to help me home to my own country as soon as possible, for I have been long in trouble and away from my friends." And then he sat down on the hearth among the ashes, and they all held their peace, till presently the old hero Echinus, who was an excellent speaker and an elder among the Phaeacians, plainly and in all honesty addressed them thus. "Alcinous," said he, "it is not credible to you that a stranger should be seen sitting among the ashes of your hearth. Everyone is waiting to hear what you are about to say. Tell him, then, to rise and take a seat on the stool inlaid with silver, and bid your servants mix some wine and water, that we may make a drink offering to Jove, the Lord of Thunder, who takes all well-disposed suppliants under his protection, and let the housekeeper give some supper of whatever there may be in the house." "Hello, Mai. How you doing? Have a good evening?" When Alcinous heard this, he took Ulysses by the hand and raised him from the hearth, and bade him take the seat of Laodamas, who had been sitting beside him, and was his favorite son. The dad just kicked the son out of his chair and be like, "Look, we're letting this guy that just showed up take that seat." You doing good? Hell yeah. I'm doing pretty good. Tommy was a little upset at the beginning of stream, but it's good now. A maidservant then brought him a water in a beautiful golden ewer and poured it into a silver basin for him to wash his hands, and she drew a clean table beside him. An upper servant brought him bread and offered him many good things of what there was in the house, and Ulysses ate and drank. Then Alcinous said to one of the servants, "Pontonous, mix a cup of wine and hand it round that we may make drink offerings to Jove, the Lord of Thunder, who is the protector of all well-disposed suppliants." Pontonous then mixed wine and water, and handed it round after giving every man his drink offering. When they had made their offerings and had drunk each as much as he was minded, Alcinous said, "Where is it? Okay. Aldermen and town councillors of the Phaeacians, hear my words. You have had your supper, now go home to bed. Tomorrow morning I shall invite a still larger number of aldermen, and will give a sacrificial banquet in honor of our guest. We can then discuss the question of his escort, and consider how we may at once send him back rejoicing to his own country without trouble or inconvenience to himself, no matter how distant it may be. We must see that he comes to no harm while on his homeward journey, but when he is once at home, he will have to take the luck he was born with for better or worse like other people. It is possible, however, that the stranger is one of the immortals who has come down from heaven to visit us, But in this case the gods are departing from their usual practice, for hitherto they have made themselves perfectly clear to us when we have been offering them hecatombs. They come and sit at our feast just like one of ourselves, and if any solitary wayfarer happens to stumble upon someone or other of them, they affect no concealment, for we are as near of kin to the gods as the Cyclops and the savage giants are. Then Ulysses said, Pray, Alcinous, do not take any such notion into your head. I have nothing of the immortal about me, neither in body nor mind, and most resemble those among you who are the most afflicted. Indeed, were I to tell you all that heaven has seen fit to lay upon me, you would say that I was still worse off than they are. Nevertheless, let me sup in spite of sorrow, for an empty stomach is a very importunate. That's a new one. Importunate. Okay, I'm curious on that one. Importunate. Persistent, especially to the point of annoyance or intrusion. Interesting. We're learning words, guys. Let's see. Yeah, so, nevertheless, let me sup in spite of sorrow, for an empty stomach is a very importunate thing. Yo, we learning today. Yeah. Is a very importunate thing, and thrusts itself on a man's notice, no matter how dire is his distress. I am in great trouble, yet it insists that I shall eat and drink, bids me lay aside all memory of my sorrows, and dwell only on the due replenishing of itself. As for yourselves, do as you propose, and at break of day set about helping me to get home. I shall be content to die if I may first once more behold my property, my bondsmen, and all the greatness of my house. Thus did he speak. Everyone approved of his saying, and agreed that he should have his escort inasmuch as he had spoken reasonably. Then, when they had made their drink offerings, and had drunk each as much as he was minded, they went home to bed every man in his own abode, leaving Ulysses in the cloister with Arete and Alcinous while the servants were taking the things away after supper. Arete was the first to speak, for she recognized the shirt, cloak, and good clothes that Ulysses was wearing as the work of herself and of her maids, so she said, Stranger, before we go any further, there is a question I should like to ask you. Who and whence are you, and who gave you those clothes? Did you not say you had come here from beyond the sea? You Gucci smart. And Ulysses answered, It would be a long story, madam, were I to relate in full the tale of my misfortunes, for the hand of heaven has been laid heavy upon me. But as regards to your question, there is an island far away on the sea which is called the Ogygian. Here dwells the cunning and powerful goddess Calypso, daughter of Atlas. She lives by herself, far from all neighbors, human or divine. Fortune, however, brought me to her hearth all desolate and alone, for Jove struck my ship with his thunderbolts and broke it up in mid-ocean. My brave comrades were drowned, and every man of them, but I stuck to the keel and was carried hither and thither for the space of 9 days, till at last during the darkness of the 10th night the gods brought me to the Ogygian island, where the great goddess Calypso lives. She took me in and treated me with the utmost kindness. Indeed, she wanted to make me immortal that I might never grow old, but she could not persuade me to let her do so. I stayed with Calypso 7 years straight on end, and watered the good clothes she gave me with my tears during the whole time. But at last, when the 8th year came round, she bade me depart of her own free will, either because Jove had told her she must, or because she had changed her mind. She sent me from her island on a raft, which she provisioned with abundance of bread and wine. Moreover, she gave me good stout clothing, and sent me a wind that blew both warm and fair. Days 7 and 10 did I sail over the sea, and on the 18th I caught sight of the first outlines of the mountains upon your coast, and glad indeed I was to set eyes upon them. Nevertheless, there was still much trouble in store for me, for at this point Neptune would let me go no further, and raised a great storm against me. The sea was so terribly high that I could no longer keep to my raft, which went to pieces under the fury of the gale, and I had to swim for it till wind and current brought me to your shores. There I tried to land, but could not, for it was a bad place, and the waves dashed me against the rocks. So I again took to the sea and swam on till I came to a river that seemed the most likely landing place, for there were no rocks and it was sheltered from the wind. Here, then, I got out of the water and gathered my senses together again. Night was coming, so I left the river and went into a thicket, where I covered myself all over with leaves, and presently heaven sent me off into a very deep sleep. Sick and sorry as I was, I slept among the leaves all night, and through the next day till afternoon, when I woke as the sun was westering, and saw your daughter's maidservants playing upon the beach, and your daughter among them looking like a goddess. I besought her aid, and she proved to be of an excellent disposition, much more so than could be expected from so young a person, for young people are apt to be thoughtless. She gave me plenty of bread and wine, and when she had me washed in the river, she also gave me the clothes in which you see me. Now, therefore, though it has pained me to do so, I have told you the whole truth. Then Alcinous said, Stranger, it was very wrong of my daughter not to bring you on at once to my house along with the maids, seeing that she was the first person whose aid you asked. Pray do not scold her, replied Ulysses. She is not to blame. She did tell me to follow along with the maids, but I was ashamed and afraid, for I thought you might perhaps be displeased if you saw me. Every human being is sometimes a little suspicious and irritable. Welcome back, Mark. Strangers, replied Alcinous, I am not the kind of man to get angry about nothing. It is always better to be reasonable, but by Father Jove, Minerva, and Apollo, now that I see what kind of person you are and how much you think as I do, I wish you would stay here, marry my daughter, and become my son-in-law. Well, that was quick. It's like, hey, now that I got to know you for all of 5 minutes, marry my daughter. Like, bruh. If you will stay, I will give you a house and an estate, but no one, heaven forbid, shall keep you here against your own wish, and that you may be sure of this, I will attend tomorrow to the matter of your escort. You can sleep during the whole voyage if you like, and the men shall sail you over smooth waters either to your own home or wherever you please, even though it be a long way further off than your Euboea, which those of my people who saw it when they took yellow-haired Radamanthus to see Tydeus, the son of Gaia, tell me is the furthest of any place, and yet they did the whole voyage in a single day without distressing themselves, and came back again afterwards. You will thus see how much my ships excel all others, and what magnificent oarsmen my sailors are. Then was Ulysses glad and prayed aloud, saying, Father Jove, grant that Alcinous may do all as he has said, for so he will win an imperishable name among mankind, and at the same time I shall return to my country. Thus did they converse. Then Arete told her maids to set a bed in the room that was in the gatehouse, and make it with good red rugs, and to spread coverlets on the top of them with woolen cloaks for Ulysses to wear. The maidens thereon went out with torches in their hands, and when they had made the bed they came up to Ulysses and said, Rise, sir stranger, and come with us, for your bed is ready. And glad indeed was he to go to his rest. So Ulysses slept in a bed placed in a room over the echoing gateway, but Alcinous lay in the inner part of the house, with the queen his wife by his side. End Book 7. Book 8's looking kind of long, so we'll probably save that one for next. Yeah. goodness gravy. Ugh. Oh, we went for 3 hours. Dope. Yeah, I think voice wise, I'm up.
Drinking out of
Wake up.
cups. Being a bitch.
How dare you, Mark? But yeah, no, yeah, I think voice wise, it's I'm all right. I love that you named your emote Hap. Well, I mean, like happy, but just the P, so happy. I like that. But yeah, no, yeah, I think voice wise, it's fine. I might try to go for like 4 hours next time, for next week. But let's see. Whom do we have? Ba-dum-bum-ba-dum-bum-bum. Oh, would you look at that? We got a little somebody who's also doing something pretty vibing and relaxing. Called Power Wash Simulator. So why don't we I think you went for an extra hour today. Yeah, I think it was like 2 hours. Might be 2.5 at most. But yeah, around about 2 hours. Is it a griffin? You are exactly right. It's a griffin, more. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. All right? Don't be don't be doing it. I'm watching in their chat. I'll know. I'll know if you do it. All right, but we're gonna wade. We're gonna wade. But yeah. But yeah, thank you all for vibing, and hopefully y'all are enjoying these book readings. I wanted to try something, since I supposedly have a voice. And just see how it goes, Maybe people like the book reading, maybe. But anyway, maybe we should hit him with that Pog Champ, and then we're gonna hit him with that Wash This Griffin, and then we're gonna hit him with another Pog Champ. You're gonna be like, here, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. Blam! Wash this, Griffin. I don't know. You do enjoy them? It's very chill. Aw, thank you. I couldn't think of anything, so I was just like, wash this, Griffin. Like, I don't know. It's myth, so it's. But yeah, no. Thank you all for vibing with me, and time's going. I'll catch you all on Friday. Not sure what yet.